Hey guys, welcome back to more Neighbors from Hell stories. In this Ripe video, a crazy Karen neighbor shoots a disabled veteran because he supposedly devalues the community. Let's dive right into the story. So I got out of the Marines years ago and I'm basically retired at this point. Unlike a lot of disabled veterans that just got out of services, I'm a little bit older. I was not overseas when it happened either. After basic training, a lot of the Marines end up at the School of Infantry. There are a lot of people, me included, to continue to teach them. Well, there was an accident involving a grenade and I got hurt and stuck in this wheelchair because of it. I moved to a suburban area after I got myself sorted because I wanted some peace and quiet in my life after the years of chaos. I'm pretty self-sufficient too. My van has a ramp and I can just load it in, lock myself in place and drive where I need to go. Same with my house, everything is modified so that I can move around, cook, clean and whatever else I need. One of the positives of the modern life and technology, within a few days I noticed my next door neighbor. She seemed to be in her 40s, maybe just a few years older than I was. She had a constant sour face and gave me these horrible looks though. She was a Karen if I ever saw one, and she seemed to dislike that I was the person that moved in next door to her. Now, Karen was holding the belief that my van and my ramp instead of a porch step were considered ugly. She told people that I was devaluing the community and nobody was gonna move in next to a so-called cripple. She was not saying it to my face, but it was not making me feel too welcome either. I did try to just smile at her and be a good neighbor. She never said hello back and I could hear her mumbling under her breath about me, no doubt saying something nasty or that I was making things ugly for her. One morning, I was going out to the store and couldn't get into my van. Karen had parked her sedan so that it was blocking my driveway. The way the ramp came down was from the back, and with her car in the way, I couldn't get the ramp down and into it. She was right there outside too, not even trying to hide what she was doing. Me, can you please move your car? I need to get my ramp down. Karen, maybe if you need so much special treatment, you should not live in a normal neighborhood. A hospital might be better for you. I went back inside and called the non-emergency police line to tell them that Karen was blocking my driveway and not letting me leave. Things went faster than I thought and police showed up a little bit later. Since she was illegally parked and blocking me, the police told her that she had to move or she would face a ticket and possibly being towed. She agreed to move, and while I cannot control what the police do, I still think a ticket would have been warranted. Karen was not happy about it. When she was getting into the car, I swore I could hear her say that I was gonna regret calling the cops on her. I didn't say anything to her or the police there, but maybe I should have. Looking back now, part of me thinks that sometimes I get so independent I cannot admit needing outside help too, even from the cops. For a few weeks she kept making digs at me whenever she saw me, comments about how much government money I was probably using, telling me that kids probably thought I was a freak and should stay inside, just nasty things in general that she wanted to make me feel bad. Maybe she assumed I would just move if she had made my life miserable enough. I've heard people say all kinds of crap about me in my life. When I was in basic training myself, that's basically all that the drill instructors do. I have thick skin, but even thick skin can feel a burn, and then I woke up to the day that my van was covered in spray paint. The word cripple was written on both sides and go away was right over the windshield. Now that is something that really hurt me. What people might not know is that I have a doorbell camera and the footage made it clear as day who the person was who sprayed my van. If you guessed Karen, well, sorry to say, you're actually wrong. It was her teenage son. I called the cops again and they came to take pictures and get a copy of the door camera footage. He was not wearing a mask or hiding his face in any way. I just told them that I knew he was the kid next door and they went to check it out for me. I'm sorry to say that I don't know exactly what they said, and when they went to their house, I just know what happened when they were coming outside. I learned later that they charged him with vandalism and a hate crime. When they were taking him out in handcuffs, Karen came running out screaming. She didn't try and tell them not to arrest him or anything, but instead she came up to me and lost her mind. Karen, now look what you did. You ruined my son's life. He's getting arrested because you could not let a harmless prank go. At this point I was done with her and felt safe speaking my mind, especially with the cops right there. Me, if your son at age 17 does not know how to behave, then it's on you as being a horrible mom. As for a harmless prank, you can think about that when I sent you a bill to get the spray paint removed from my car. Karen, you shouldn't have ever moved here in the first place. Me, and you shouldn't have reproduced. Stay away from my property and stay away from me. I went back into my house and assumed that would be the end of everything. I was even planning at that point to post it as a story, but then a couple days later when I went out again, since I had an appointment, things did not go well. I heard a noise and then felt a sharp pain in my arms and back of my neck. I looked at Karen and saw that she was holding a paintball gun. It seemed high-powered too with how much they hurt. She wanted me to see her and she just kept shooting and I couldn't move out of the way fast enough. She was also screaming at the top of her lungs to get out of the community and that nobody wanted me there. I already felt the welts growing on my skin underneath my shirt. I would have called 911, but I couldn't even grab my phone. I was just a sitting target. I could not move the chair while my arms were being shot at. I guess the yelling gained attention because the police ended up showing up and got Karen to stop. Suddenly Karen was laughing and saying she was just playing and didn't mean to actually hurt me. Me, I'm covered in welts and paint. I'm supposed to be at an appointment. The officer was trying to calm me down while others were arresting Karen. Some other charges got tacked on too, since of course she couldn't keep her mouth shut about me being a cripple once she was being arrested. The paintball gun was taken as evidence, photos of me were taken, and I actually went to the hospital to get checked out since I was bleeding in some spots that she had hit repeatedly. I was alright, but man, I felt useless being shot at and not being able to do anything about it. Her assault charge was a felony and she probably was gonna be spending some time in jail. Her son got lucky that his case stayed in juvenile court and he got a deal for it being his first offense and telling on his mother for putting him up to it. I plan to sue Karen too for civil damages since I need to get both the van and the chair cleaned. By the way, I met the neighbor who called the cops and I thanked her for stepping in. It seems like Karen is just a one-off and the rest of my neighbors don't seem to mind that I am in a wheelchair. I hope that the rest of my time here can be relaxing and another Karen does not come my way. And yeah guys, let's hope OP never has to face a neighbor like this again. Have you ever had such horrible neighbors in your life? Let us know about it in the comments. I would love to read your story. And the next one is a really good neighbor petty revenge story that is titled "Throw Eggs at My Car? Have fun washing and waxing for hours." So for a couple of weeks since school started, two neighborhood middle school kids, they are brothers, have been messing with my brother, also middle school aged, at school, on the bus and in the neighborhood. Nothing very serious, but super annoying things like taking his backpack on the bus, calling him names, and taking his toys at the neighborhood pool. He told me, college aged, about it and asked me to help, so the next time they came along while we were at the pool, I'd shoot them out for a few minutes and they damn near crapped themselves. They seemed to fix it for a few days, after which I became their target. Now, they didn't really mess with me directly, but instead with my car. With my parents' help, I recently bought a 2021 Toyota Camry TRD V6. I have a much older car too from high school, which was a gift from my dad, but this one is really my pride and joy. Ask any of my neighbors and they will know how much I love it. I wash it pretty much every weekend. Now, just yesterday when I was almost done applying a coat of wax, I ran inside to grab a glass of water. It's 97 degrees here in Atlanta. I walk out to the driveway to see those MFs running away with an empty carton of eggs and my damn car covered in yolks and eggshells. I lose my mind and yell some nasty words at them. Well, not only had I washed it, but I'd also waxed it this weekend, and that crap takes hours to do for a really clean finish. Now, luckily, I did not notice any paint damage. Now I promptly drive my egg-covered car to those kids' parents' house and knock. I explain to the dad what the hell just happened and the whole background. These people have been more hostile than friendly in the past, but the dad genuinely looked pissed at what happened and he noticed how effed my car was. Now this dude is a linebacker-sized Marine veteran. He instantly called his older kid and yelled at him to bring both of their asses home right now. ATP, the dad is profusely apologizing for his kid's behavior, and a few minutes later they show up. This man has the voice of a drill sergeant, and he brought tears to his kids' faces in seconds. Made them do push-ups and stuff right there outside with both of us watching. After that he asks me to go home and they'll be over in a few minutes to clean up my car. All three of them come over and I command those brats to rinse and wash and dry everything. The whole time, the dad stood right there pointing out his kid's mistakes. We did that for hours until my car was spotless and shiny as a diamond. Before they left, he made his kids apologize again for what they did. Even though it was a massive inconvenience on my Saturday, I still feel like it's a W, since I know those slimy chimps will never mess with me or my family again. And yeah guys, that story was absolutely amazing. And if you enjoy them as much as I do, I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and leave a comment. The next one is titled, I don't want a sandwich, I want a raise. This one is gonna be short and sweet. I won't say company names, but it's not hard to figure out if you do a little digging. So anyway, straight out of high school, I went to work for the world's biggest taxidermy part manufacturer that we will call McDykes Taxidermy. McDykes is a big company with a high turnover rate because they did not pay well. Me being in high school, I didn't care because I was able to buy wheat and put my own gas in my car. Well, some years down the road, I ended up becoming the team lead at 21 years old. I was even the temporary department manager when the real one went on vacation. I was in charge of people 3 times my age. But as life went on, more and more bills were made in my name, money became an issue, and I started asking for a raise. Now don't get me wrong, they gave me a few raises when I was not a lead, but that's it. Never got another raise when I was selected to be the team lead. I also later found out that other leads were making about $5 to $6 more than I was. When I would ask for a raise, they would give me the same generic crap like last time. The straw that broke the camel's back was when they hired a 16-year-old making the same amount as me. I was pissed. I brought this up with the big bosses and was told I'll be rewarded. The next day they bought the entire plant a cheap meal from Chick-fil-A. Again, I was pissed. So I found the big boss and told him, I don't want a sandwich, I want a raise. I was told that I needed to find a different line of work for that type of money. After that conversation, I called my uncle and asked if he needed help with his construction business, and he said yes. I clocked out after telling my team and coworkers that I'm leaving and never went back. I got that raise I wanted, and then some. The only good thing that came out of that job was the leadership experience, because I've had 2 job offers as a team lead since leaving McDykes Taxidermy. After I left that place, I heard it fell to shambles. They are struggling to keep up with the big parts, they cannot keep an employee longer than 3 months, etc. And it made me really feel good about myself, because I was only 21 years old putting out more work than some of the 10+ year veterans where it took me leaving them to crumble. It just goes to show how much they relied on me, and I'm so damn proud of that. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. Well over a decade ago, I lived under the nasty, petty, vindictive thumb of an HOA. I mean, who hasn't, am I right? I had clashed with the board for years over illegal special assessments and failure to ever enforce rules against board members' friends. My crowning achievement was forcing them to either grant every homeowner full unfettered access to all roof patios, or limit roof repair expenses only to those units who wrongfully claimed the roof areas were a part of their units. Despite the fact that their deeds did not grant them private rights to roof areas, each homeowner on the top floor had fenced off their roof space and in one instance built an unpermitted sunroom. Additionally, I reported the sunroom to the city and it had to be removed because no permit, too heavy for the roof, causing damage to the roof, etc. The same damage that the board wanted everyone to pay for. It was a lot of time and energy just to fight people trying to screw us over. Eventually, I was ready to sell my condo because I was selling for sale by owner. I did my own marketing. As part of my marketing, I bought the domain of my unit number plus street name and built a website for the unit/sale. While doing so, I noticed the com/net/org domains for the building street address were available for purchase. So I snagged those too, as well as street number, street name, hoa.com/org/net. And I sold the place and moved out. 6 months or so later, I received an email from the HOA board president asking if I owned those domains. I replied that I did. She told me they belonged to the property, and now that I didn't live there, I had to turn them over. I told her she needed to replace the HOA's lawyers if they told her that, and the board was welcome to purchase the domains from me for the tidy sum of $5,000. Well, why $5,000, you ask? because that is the amount they wanted each homeowner to pay in special assessments for the roof repairs needed from the illegal sunroom and fencing. And the next one is the HOA title story, which is titled "Crazy HOA Neighbor Built a Secret Room Under My House." And by the way, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to like the video, post a comment if you want to support me, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I upload daily and we are getting closer and closer to 130,000 subscribers. Thank you very much in advance. So my wife and I had moved into a neighborhood with an HOA. We had never been a part of one before and figured that it was one of those case-by-case things that people just overreacted about. We were looking for a nice development, and the house we purchased with the HOA fees was not outrageous. The first few months made it seem like the perfect place to live, and then we met Richard. Richard was the president of the HOA. His house was right next to ours, and I thought that would mean he would get to see just how amazing me and my wife were at being neighborly. I made sure to mow my lawn to the HOA specifications, my wife only decorated the porch with approved flags and statues. And we kept to the quiet hours that were posted around the neighborhood. Still, no matter what we did, there was always something new that Richard would find to complain to us about. Richard was always on us for one thing or another. There was always something we missed, some sort of ordinance we didn't take into account. He once caught me before I headed to my car for work and told me that the way I parked in the driveway was not up to the HOA standards, which of course I looked up later and couldn't find anything about. There were things about parking on the street but nothing about the driveway. Apparently he had gone around the neighborhood daily to cite anything that was not up to his standards, HOA compliant or not. But it always felt like he had it out for me and my wife specifically. Well, about half a year into moving, my wife and I were cited with a ridiculous fine about our garbage bins not being the correct ones approved by the HOA. The garbage cans we had were the ones that were left with the house, so that did not make any sense. But I figured there might be another set somewhere else in the house. I was checking the basement when I noticed that part of the floor looked a little different than the rest of the room. The basement was unfinished, so the floor was concrete, and at first I figured there had been a crack or something that was repaired. When I got closer, I realized that it wasn't actually concrete, but wood painted to look like it. And there were lines around the wood that indicated that I was looking at a door. Of course, I checked it out, opening up a trap door that led to a tunnel just a little under 5 feet high. At the end of the tunnel was a light, and when I reached it, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was a room underneath our house. It was not very large, just a little over 6 feet tall and maybe 9 feet wide. However, there was a bed in the room and evidence that someone had been living there. I also noticed a few things that I recently thought went missing from the house. A few plates, forks, a spare set of keys. That freaked me out, but the thing that scared me the most was that there was drug paraphernalia everywhere. Smoked blunts, syringes, small bags of what I could only assume was cocaine. It was basically like I walked into the room from a horror movie. At first I didn't know what to do. Clearly there was someone that was using this room. I thought about going to the police, but I wanted to make sure they understood that even though the room was beneath my house, I had no clue it had been there when I moved in. So I did the next best thing. I set up cameras. I wanted to see who was using this room and what exactly was happening. So I waited until later that day and I checked the camera feed. I watched as another trapdoor opened from one of the walls of the room and saw Richard come through it, along with a woman that was not his wife. The two of them started to have intercourse and I realized that the area that Richard came from faced his house. So apparently he had built this room under my house and has been using it for who knows how long to do drugs and have an affair from his wife. It made a bit more sense why he didn't like me or my wife. We had moved into the place where he could hide. I was able to screenshot a few images of Richard with the other woman and I sent them over to his wife to let her know that her husband was cheating on her. I left the printed pictures in an envelope by the door and then rang the bell. I wanted to make sure she got them, so I waited to make sure Richard was in the room doing something else before dropping them off. The next thing I did was go through the HOA website and using the same contract me and my wife had to read through and sign and highlighted all of the violations that Richard had with just using this room. I knew that if I needed to, I could request the HOA to provide the documentation on when this room was constructed, as it wasn't part of the floor plan I was provided when I was thinking about moving in. Then I called the cops, letting them know about the room and the evidence I had from Richard's drug use and theft. I made sure to call when I knew he was in the room and I had the police use my trapdoor to get down there in order to surprise him. So basically, Richard was caught red-handed with a lot of drugs, and the police found other items of mine that he had taken, including a picture of me and my wife that I thought had somehow gotten lost during the move. Richard was promptly arrested, and I made sure to let the HOA know what he did along with his violations. The HOA reacted to the news pretty quickly. I remember they sent out an online newsletter about Richard's departure from the HOA and had a whole paragraph about how the people of the board did not condone his behavior. Of course, that did not stop me and my wife from calling them out for allowing Richard to have funds for construction of the room in the first place, which they had categorized under MISC tasks in their files. There'll be charges brought against them within the next few months, since a few other members of the community had issues with the HOA board as well. The room's been filled up with concrete, and I'm so glad I don't have to think about it anymore. Richard's wife filed for divorce and has been trying to make nice with everyone to help quell any bad blood they might have had towards her because of her husband. She really is a nice lady now. I can finally live just a little more peacefully with my wife. The legal aftermath of Richard's arrest was intense. He was charged with multiple felonies, including drug possession, breaking and entering, and construction without proper permits. The DA also tacked on charges for embezzlement, since he had used HOA funds to build his secret lair. Richard's trial was quick. With the mountain of evidence against him, his lawyer advised him to take a plea deal. He ended up with a 10-year sentence, eligible for parole in 7. His now ex-wife got everything in the divorce, including the house next door. The HOA faced its own legal troubles. Several homeowners, including me, filed a class action lawsuit for negligence and misuse of funds. We won a hefty settlement which was divided among all the residents. As for me and my wife, we decided to stay in the neighborhood. With Richard gone and a new, more reasonable HOA board in place, things improved dramatically. We became friends with Richard's ex-wife, who turned out to be a lovely person once she was free from his influence. The whole ordeal taught me a valuable lesson. Always check for secret rooms when buying a house. You never know what or who might be lurking beneath your feet. And before we end the video, let's read one last fantastic malicious compliance story that is brand new. This one is titled, "You want me to stop answering the phone?" You got it. So this happened when I was working at a cemetery. The managers were crazy micromanagers. When I first started as an admin/receptionist, I would answer the door, we locked it for pandemic reasons, answer the phones and transfer to others. I would also help the family service advisors with their scheduling. They were always super busy attending to grieving families, and you never rush families obviously, so they would often be quite swamped. We then had a team meeting where I was personally called out for apparently not doing my job. I was doing the job of others. I shouldn't be answering the phone, since the FSAs should be answering. We had caller ID, so we knew who was calling, and the FSAs should answer the door for their own appointments. The FSAs should schedule their own appointments, and even if it meant they started falling behind on their paperwork and being late to funerals. By the way, guys, once again to reiterate, because I was getting confused a little bit myself, FSA means Family Service Advisor. So anyway, I did as I was asked and stopped. I just sat there and got paid for doing nothing. I got called out again for not answering or scheduling. I showed them the meeting agenda they provided outlining how I shouldn't be doing that anymore, and needless to say, I didn't last long there in an effort to keep my sanity. For a bit more context, me and the FSAs worked like a well-oiled machine by the time they called me out. I definitely knew the quality of service would suffer by complying with this. I'm not like this amazing person, but I really believed we were helping people and loved going above and beyond to provide help when grieving families had to deal with administration and bureaucratic nonsense at the worst time of their lives. It was one of those cases of the managers not seeing my value. I have dozens and dozens of other horror stories from my 2 years there, the last straw being that they wrongfully terminated one of the FSAs for being sick. And yeah, Ripe Stars, thank you for watching. If you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my playlist on the left, and I will see you again tomorrow.